Listen to this episode if you want an absolute masterclass on AEO and GEO for product-based businesses, aka how do you show up on an AI search as a product brand, as a consumer brand. Today, we are met with Leah Nurik. She is the co-founder and CEO of Brandi AI, the leading AI visibility and generative engine optimization platform. Today, we're talking about what her workflow is to audit where you're currently at with your AI, as well as with GEO. How should you kind of dive into this as a product-based business? We talk about myths. We talk about mistakes. We talk about, does this mean we have to have blogs or not? And then at the end, Leah is going to give us a superpower for AEO and GEO right now. We're also going to talk about where we think this is going to go in the next 12 months, 24 months. And right now, what do you need to be doing in order to optimize your searchability inside of AI? This is a hot topic right now in consumer brands. I'm so excited to be bringing you a specialist to come on and talk about it. This is a masterclass 101 of AEO and GEO. I'm so excited to introduce Leah Nurik. Buyers now ask AI before they actually ask Google for things, which is a crazy concept for us to wrap our head around. It's brought up this new conversation of AEO and GEO from a business owner. Can you explain what they are, what the difference is, and why people should really care to get us started off?
Well, AEO and GEO, they're kind of the same thing. It's just the market hasn't decided yet what it's going to call it. I bet this year it'll all become the same thing. But what it is it's basically, how does my brand get represented in the answers that AI gives? So if it's ChatGPT, but beyond ChatGPT, what about the Google AI overview? So the Google AI overview is actually also driven by AI. I guess we know that because it's called an AI overview. But even if you still do go to Google, you're probably going to get an AI overview first. So it's a very different discipline than how we used to worry or optimized for our brands getting found on the internet. Now it's really a whole different game.
Yeah. It's kind of the new SEO, but through the AI softwares. And I think the important distinction that I've seen is when you typed in something to Google, you still got 15 options, on that first page of Google. Whereas with AI, they oftentimes give you one major option or maybe 1, 2, or 3, where now you have to rank in those top searches in order to even pop up from a search perspective.
That's right. Yeah, you got it. It's replacing the old school blue link. Bye-bye blue links. Hello AI overview.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see how it's all changed. And I think from a product brand perspective, many people are shopping. When I go back to how I shopped for Christmas, I was on ChatGPT saying, hey, my husband needs a snowmobile boots and I know nothing about snowmobile boots. So tell me what snowmobile boots to buy. And I bought what it told me to buy and we went through it. And it creates a lot more of a conversational shopping experience instead of it just being like me doing research. It feels a lot more like, which one would you recommend? It kind of has that social proof built into it. When you're really looking at brands, where are they grabbing this information from to optimize for AEO or GEO?
That's a great question, because the answer is from all the different places, but it really depends upon your market. The things that you can normally control are your owned content. So the content that you own on your website, right? And then earned media, if you're doing PR activities to get placed in, respectable publications. Reddit tends to be a big source too. So having a good, authentic, credible brand that your customers want to talk about. But if you have like a B2B brand, sometimes it can be from LinkedIn or from software review sites or consumer reports if it's a consumer brand. So the answer is everywhere, but it depends on your market, which is why it's really important to try to track your market and your brand so that you can identify the domains or the outlets or the locations that the AI is considering the most authoritative and credible in your market space.
So it pulls in different places for different types of industries.
If you go on LinkedIn, you'll hear a bunch of people saying earned media is the only way forward in this new brave new world. And of course, right? So those are earned media people that are saying that. And it's true in some markets. So like, for example, I've been running an instance in our product. Our product's called Brandi AI, and I've been running one on Jeep. So I have like an instance of like trying to figure out how well Jeep is showing up against like Tesla, Volvo, Ford, and so it's showing that. And so it turns out for that market, earned media is like the number one source. It's all car and driver, motor trend. But then I've got another one. I don't know if your listeners are in business, if they've heard of HubSpot. It's like a CRM. Okay. So for them, I have another CRM instance we actually put out a visibility index report on this a couple of weeks ago, but it shows like HubSpot, Salesforce, a company called Intercom, all the key CRMs. But earned media doesn't play as important a role in CRM. So like, I don't know, and you don't know, and nobody knows until you start actually digging into the data of that market. And none of us want to fly blind, right? So it's good to just have something just to try to figure it out.
Yeah. So a lot of the listeners are consumer product brands. So whether they're skincare or clothing or candles, home decor, things like that. Have you found areas, you kind of said consumer reports and Reddit before, which is something that I've definitely seen, but have you found any areas there within more of the like product D2C brands that have been really strong?
Yeah. So earned media, absolutely for consumer. Reddit, like we said. So public Facebook groups, but you got to find the public ones because it can't get indexed and found by AI if it's private. So those actually, we have several consumer brands that are revisiting their whole social strategy based on that. Another interesting thing is, the Google product listings.
Mm-hmm. Those are really high?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And they show up not only in Google results, but also on ChatGPT. That's important too, to optimize for those.
Yeah, interesting. What I hear a lot of here is that it's not just your website, which is different from, SEO. There was backlinks and PR and all of these other things as well. But I think traditionally, a lot of times when people talk about SEO, they're like, oh, I need a blog. I need to do all of these things. But with AI, it seems like it's almost scrubbing a lot of different sites to bring it back into the AI softwares.
It is, but I would say that a lot of consumer brands, they don't really have great blogs. This is just me philosophizing, but just from being around the market for a while in marketing and B2C brands is that, they've been very focused on pay-per-click and performance advertising. They haven't necessarily focused so much on their content generation. A lot of them have really good blogs, right? So keep in mind that if you don't have a ton of money to spend on performance marketing, or if you can afford to continue to spend on performance marketing, but afford to do content generation, your stuff will get picked up. If your organic blog stuff will most likely get picked up if it's structured right.
Yeah.
But it's just that they don't necessarily do it.
What is the difference in your mind to a good blog versus a bad blog?
I'm a marketer by trade. I always believe in producing authentic, relevant content that really solves problems for people. I don't think that anybody should be trying to tricky trick the LLMs or anybody. If you got to go to work every day, if your listeners are making like these organic, beautiful candles, they're in it because they love it. You got to go to work every day. You got to live with yourself. No tricky trick, right? So creating authentic, credible content, but also if you have the ability to listen in the sense of not just listening like this, but if you have like an intelligence engine that can actually listen and identify what the different pain points are, what are the emotional triggers? What are the things that stop people from buying? What problems are they really trying to solve? Then that can help generate the ideas for the blog. Authentic, credible,
and helpful as opposed to self-serving. Yes.
Yeah. What do you think?
I agree. And I ask you this because I say it a lot too, is a lot of people have a blog just because they were told that they should. And then it's just these blog posts so they can stuff them with keywords as opposed to actually provide value where their blog never really gets any visibility there. What I think a blog should really be is a lot more of like a frequently asked questions or a case studies, storytelling for your brand. And again, going back to your tricky tricks, is we don't want hacks. We don't want you to just just like stuff them with keywords. Because if you've ever read a blog that was stuffed with keywords, you know very easily, very quickly, you're like, all right, we get it. You sell, dog collars 100 times in this one paragraph. We get it. We want it to be a little bit deeper. So I totally agree. There's a lot of bad blogs out there. And now with AI, so many people are just like asking AI to write them 15 blog posts, and they just whip them out there, and they kind of sound like everybody else. They just make very little change to it. And where I find it helpful from a keyword perspective slightly, is it actually helpful from your customers? Probably not. When they land on it, is it actually going to be an authentic, actual valuable share? Most likely not.
Well, can we talk about that for a second? The AI writing?
Yeah, please.
It's such a bad idea.
Tell me why.
One is it's slop. And what are you going to do? Run it through there 10 times so it gets better at not sounding like slop. If you ran it through there 10 times, if you had a good workflow that actually gave you an outline or something like that, that told you if I write it like this, it's most likely going to be found by GEO, and it's going to actually answer the questions and meet the problems that my customers have. That's actually more efficient than trying to re-engineer something that is probably going to sound like AI slop.
Yeah.
The next reason for that is that really only humans can connect with humans. That might sound like, oh, Leah, you're living in fantasy land in 2026, but there is an element of human connection that a creative has. I say use AI to be more efficient, like you're trying to find the best snowmobiling boots, right?
Yes.
But when you truly believe in what you're selling and what you're conveying, then that comes through in the copy. And it's not just for AI or the keyword stuffing. It's truly to connect with your customers. And if you're a mission-oriented brand, that's what you should do. And third, which some people might find the most important thing, is what if the LLMs decide that AI-generated content is not going to be indexed? Because Google already said it's not indexing AI slop that it can tell is generated by AI. And I'm old enough to remember that when they changed the algorithm to stop the type of tactics that people were doing with keyword stuffing, a whole bunch of companies got delisted, a whole bunch of companies lost their rankings. So here's what I say. Why would you take that risk? Protect the integrity and future-proof your brand and follow a workflow that will actually get you to where you're going, and you'll connect better with your customers.
I totally agree. You might as well do it authentically and the right way, as opposed to these hacks. This is how I teach everything, is like, I can tell you a hook to write to go viral on Instagram, but that doesn't matter if you don't have everything else right. So you might as well just learn the principles of marketing, learn the principles of SEO, learn the principles of these things, and do it right across the board. Create a connection with your customers. And you don't want to like lose the trust either. I can tell within seconds when something is written with AI, especially one that hasn't been trained at all. Like, people are just typing it in, write me a blog post about X, Y, and Z, and put it up there. And so I totally see that. So when you're talking about this workflow, is you might as well have this workflow. Where do you feel like people should prioritize, or what does that workflow really look like for more of a consumer brand? What right now, because I think very few people really know what to do when it comes to optimizing for AI, what are some of the first steps that you would actually have them take?
Well, first, I think you have to figure out how you're being positioned. Step one is, what is my universe right now? What is the state of my brand showing up in the answers? Two, is it using my content to cite it? And three, what are the other places that I might want to think about going on the internet, like Reddit, Facebook, earned media, in order to maximize that? So first, you got to put a stake in the ground, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could do it anecdotally by just going and searching in ChatGPT, but that's kind of a snapshot in time. And it's also biased by your own past searches with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
So it's not really representative of anything, but there are, platforms out there that allow you to do that. So that, and, plug Brandi AI. That's one of the things that Brandi does, is that, but regardless of that. So that's number one, figuring out where you are and how is your state today. To who else is influencing the conversation? Can I do anything about it? Can I go get coverage there? Can I optimize my Google pages? Like, what can I do? And then that also includes not just, am I getting mentioned, but am I positioned badly? Like sentiment. What if I'm not positioned well? What if the AI is grabbing from some age-old Reddit thread that was total BS, and now it's saying that like your candle melts in 5 seconds, and it doesn't because somebody was angry and posted that on Reddit, and there's nothing newer to find.
Yes. And I've seen this on Gemini is when you search, or I guess on like the Google snapshot, it's not technically Gemini, but I type in there and then it gives me an answer. And I'm like, I don't think that's right. It says that, these two people are married or like, they were born in this year. And I was like, that's no way. And then you dig a little bit deeper and somewhere they were indexing from, a wrong platform that they found some misinformation or they just like reanalyzed it wrong. And so making sure what's out there, making sure that the information that is getting out there that is accurate is really important. And knowing that if you do have somebody on Reddit that has said something bad about your candle melting in 5 seconds, you can also dilute it a little bit in the marketplace so they can get some proper information.
Yeah, no, you totally get it. Like now you can counteract the narrative. As long as you know what the narrative is and it's wrong, you can counteract it. But at first you have to know what it's saying about you. Like for some companies, right, they'll find stuff, maybe even like, let's say that they have a reseller partner or somebody, they've got their candles. Whoever makes candles out there is getting personalized advice right now. But maybe there's a couple stores, local boutiques or something that carry their candles, right?
Yeah.
And they spelled the name wrong or they have the wrong price point or they up the price. And now everybody thinks that's the price of your candle. But then you can actually identify where that's coming from by looking at where it's coming from. And then you can go back to those people and tell you, hey, that's not right. It's not reflective of my brand. You can either counteract it with new content or you might be able to find the source of it and maybe even correct it.
Oh, so then you go to the source and you say, hey, this information is, incorrect. And now we can change it there to kind of re-index with the information that's coming out with it.
Yeah, we had a company, one of our customers, it's like a PE-owned software company, and they made like 15 acquisitions over the past like 10 years, right? So all these brands that are different and they rebranded them and they renamed them. And then when they started using Brandi, they were like, oh, why is that brand still out there? Ooh. Turns out 2 of their resellers were using their old brands. So all they had to do was go back to those resellers and say, oh, you have this old page that's not the right name of the product anymore. Can you change it? And then it fixed it.
Interesting. So for everybody listening, Brandi AI is Leah's software that you've built. And basically, to my understanding, is you can kind of run a scan and see where your brand is right now and what it's actually pulling from.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, you set it up. It takes like 5 minutes. It'll basically show you, it'll generate all the most likely prompts. So if, you're selling candles in Pacific Northwest, you just focus it on that and it'll generate all the most likely searches and then it'll run it. But then it does a whole bunch of deeper things like sentiment analysis, content optimization. Yeah, it does a whole bunch of stuff like that.
No, it makes a lot of sense because it shows the workflow though of what you really need. You need to identify where it is and then you can optimize your content as to, how can we get a better narrative kind of out there. And I think that's really important. So is it good to believe that everywhere that you have something about your brand is training AI, or you said these very specific places? Is it safe to say that SEO strategies will still funnel here? Is there some overlap or is it quite different for SEO with keywords in Google versus AEO, GEO?
So this is my perspective. This is an early space. I'm very passionate about this, but I'm not going to tell you that everybody has all the answers because that would be completely inauthentic and full of hubris. And I'm not going to do that. So basically, technical SEO, like how fast do your pages load? Is there unused JavaScript hanging out on the page? I like to talk about this metric I call TTI, which is time to indexability. It's more like figuring out how long it takes your pages to get indexed because the LLMs can't find you if your pages aren't indexed, right? So that's more like the traditional SEO stuff, right? And then GEO now is more about search. So a keyword volume in Google does not equate to what people are searching for with more directional guidance. Like you were talking about the snowmobile boots. You probably said what size your husband was. Where does he like to go? How cold is it there? How often does he use it? I don't know about snowmobile boots, but maybe even what kind of snowmobile, like if it fits in or something like that. So you gave it directional guidance. That's how people talk to the LLMs. It's very different than, hey, top 10 places to go in Ireland. It's a whole different way. So that's why when you focus content, it should be more around like the intent.
You're totally right. It's like I went into Google and I typed in snowmobile boots and I got an idea of what they look like. And I was like, I got no idea what he needs. So then I went into ChatGPT and I said, my husband is going to snowmobile in Washington. He's learning how to do it. He wants him to be multifunctional. We want to be able to do this. And then it said, perfect. If he wants multifunctional, but doesn't have to be super warm, here's the options of what I would recommend. And they popped up and I said, okay, I like this style. Do you have any more that are similar to this style? where it is much more of that conversational, almost like having a shopper in your pocket that you're giving context to and you're asking questions to. Whereas an SEO model was just 3 words. When I type in Google, I type in 3 words or 5 words. It's like these very short and sweet kind of keywords that we're just tossing in there. Hey, I've been getting some DMs that you may not know what I do outside of hosting this podcast. I actually work with product-based business owners every single day to help them grow and scale their brand. If you really want my eyes one-on-one inside of your business to look at your strategy, to look at your funnels, to look at your data, and to develop your next campaign or bring your business or your idea to life, that is exactly what I do every single day. I've worked with 500 plus businesses across 70 different industries to help them become the next household name in their industry. If you are craving a business brain, a strategic advisor, a data-centered, obsessed person to come into your business and help you bring your idea to life, I'm your gal. Come on over to my Instagram at @thisismadison page, DM me support. Otherwise, you can click the link in the show notes to apply today. Okay, back to the episode.
There's a couple of things in what you said that I think are so exciting about where we are. One is exciting for us as consumers, a little scary for brands. The consumer is in the driver's seat now, and the brand has to completely provide the data that is authentic and credible in order to get found and then returned to the consumer. Where before, you would have searched top snowmobile boots and you would have gotten a list of like 1,076 pages with, 40 links on it. And you would have had to go click, click, click and do all the research yourself. Yes. So it's completely different now.
100%. And I mean, I did that exact thing is I just went in and I said, what do you think? These. And then when I went into that website, I was on REI. I said, oh, there's a couple of these. What are your thoughts on these 3 different shoes? And they said, based on what you want, you don't want that one. You don't want that one. You do want this pair of boots. And I took it as if it was a social proof. It was like a testimonial in and of itself. I felt like it was a lot of authority behind what they said. I said, great, you know more than me. Sounds good. I'll buy those boots. I think it's really interesting. We just assume that AI kind of knows because they have the whole internet at their fingertips. When you're like a startup or you're a brand that's just jumping into AEO and GEO, if you were, let's go with the candle example, just because we've been on that example. We have a candle company. You've been marketing on social media. You're making, money that way. We have people finding you. You have a built out marketing structure with ads and social. But you know that now AEO and GEO are coming up that you need to start optimizing. What are some of the first couple steps that you would have taken there?
Yeah, one is to figure out how you're doing right now. And then I would start drafting owned content that was structured in the right way in order to get found, returned, and summarized. And I would do it in an authentic way that weaves my brand in there without seeming overly promotional. If you do use a product like Brandi, it usually will help you with that. I thought one of the things you said that was so interesting is you're talking about social proof, and I'm reading in that trust.
Yeah.
And so today, what's interesting, I think, is that people trust what they're getting most of the time, unless they get something back where the thing is like hallucinating like nutso, and you're like, what? But do we get to a place at some point where people don't trust the results? I think we've all seen the Super Bowl commercial now, the Claude commercial, right? Where it's like, that was a great commercial where he's worried about his relationship with his mom, and then he gets a recommendation to go like to cougar.com or something.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the point, right? So like we all kind of came to not trust the Google results at some point, right? Because you started to realize either you're getting like half a page full of ads, or the stuff that was coming back in my Google Maps was sponsored. So the LLMs are really, they're at a crux here too. Like, how do they move forward in order to continue to be trusted? And then when and if do consumers lose confidence in what comes back, and then what comes next?
Yeah.
So who knows? It's early days.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be an interesting conversation, is kind of where do we see this in 6 months, 12 months, 24 months? Like we could have a totally different world in this in the next couple of even months, which I think is really interesting. When you say you need to see where you're at with AI right now, is it fair to say that you can just go on ChatGPT and be like, what do you know about my brand, my candle company, and like what is public? How does that really work? Or do you need a tool that's on the inside, kind of like Brandi?
Well, think about it like this, right? There's information discovery. There's the unbranded questions, like your example is great. Like, I need to buy snow boots for my husband. What's the best snowmobile boot? That's not, hey, is the Merrill snowmobile boot as good as the Solomon? So that's a different type of answer, right? So if you think about the buyer journey starting here and going down, like in traditional B2C, like informational search, navigational search versus commercial search. So you start at the top trying to solve a problem. And then you get down for brands. So going into ChatGPT and saying, what's the best candle company in the Pacific Northwest? Or I need a candle that's organic, it's soy-based, and it smells like heaven on a good day or whatever. If you don't show up in the brand in that one time you ask the question and the answer, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not showing up at all, because like we monitor prompts like every day over multiple different models. And, sometimes they come back and they answer 10% of the time. Sometimes they come up 20% of the time. They never come back 100% of the time.
Based on the context of which you're giving.
The same prompt.
Really interesting.
The same prompt. Oh yeah. No, the answers change every day. And what's really cool for your listeners to know, from what we can tell, is the LLMs will pull the most authoritative, credible, and recent content. So if you just have one blog on there that talks about the candles, it might work now until your competitor preempts you and then you start coming back less. So what you see in your instance of ChatGPT that's shaded with your own bias, that knows what Madison likes, knows that Madison's married, knows that Madison lives where she lives, all that isn't necessarily representative of what is going to come back every day. I think it's valid to do it for your brand. If you say, what do you think about this brand? You'll probably get some ideas, but it'll probably change on a day-to-day basis.
I mean, they say this about Google too, is that they change their algorithms like twice a day. I mean, it's constantly learning, but my ChatGPT knows that I like natural products. It knows certain things about me that it's going to refer different products to me because I've trained it in saying, hey, when you refer me to a cosmetic product, these are my preferences. Or it knows that I eat like a low blood sugar diet because I have to. And so when I ask it for a recipe, it'll say, oh, like because of your insulin resistance, use these different recipes. So it's going to adjust based on the context of the person, which I think is really interesting. When people hear this, they're saying, okay, it's going to change, would people be better off trying to get ahead of it now? Or would people be better off saying, we still don't know if I do work now and then I do work later. Does it make sense to be trying to kind of go all in on this right now? I know a lot of people are feeling almost like reactive with it, is like, shoot, we got to get ahead of this. Would it be safe to say that we can get ahead of it? Or will something happen similar to keyword stuffing with SEO? And of course, you don't know. You don't have like a time machine. But what would be the things to do now to try to get ahead of it that you feel like are going to be those foundational pieces, starting to get some things on Reddit? If it's changing every day, how do we really stay ahead of that? Is it something you have to do every week? What does that kind of look like?
You need to approach your content creation and all your marketing activities that are indexable with authenticity and credibility. And if you push it off, doesn't mean you can't start later, but it also means that right now you're missing a huge opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So there's that. The other thing I've seen is that AEO/GEO is the great democratizer for startup brands. You can overcome a bigger company by being really smart about what you deploy. That is incredibly exciting, I think, for growing brands. For example, the way that the LLMs read and return information may change over time, but that doesn't mean that if you have authoritative, credible content on your website or out there in the world, that it's not going to still help you later on. It's not going to hurt you. Like one thing that I find very annoying about the LLMs, and we've probably all seen these, that you're like, I asked for a comparison between these three things. And then I go and I'm like, wait, they're listing the best snowmobile boots on their website, but it's the company that makes snowmobile boots.
Yes.
Because the LLMs haven't figured out like, oh, well, that company plays in there and they're posting this blog just to rank. I think at some point they'll fix that, but I don't know how they're going to fix it or when. But right now, that's like a weird trend.
Totally. Yeah. Well, and I think, as we've said, we're in such an evolving market here that with anything, even going back 6 months of how ChatGPT gives you responses, we're in such a different world in the last 6 to 12 months of just, conversational ChatGPT, as opposed to some of these other things that are going to kind of ever evolving. Now we have Shopify linking with ChatGPT. We have all of these other buy now. We have bots being able to like kind of go in and buy stuff for us, if they have our credit card information. So things are changing very rapidly in this world. If you were to look ahead, where do you think that this will be? Where do you foresee this being in 12, 24 months?
I mean, the ad placement in AI, it's going to be incredibly disruptive. And I don't think we all even know what that looks like. Although Claude's ad campaign makes it funny. Sound like it's going to be horrible, but it's also hilarious. So that is going to be huge. I think also you're going to see a major shift in like pay-per-click and performance ads. If I'm not doing it in an LLM, why would I just continue to go to like Google pay-per-click? So I think that you'll see kind of a readjustment of that. Yeah. I also think that digital in most companies was always elevated because of SEO, and everybody thought like that's how you got all the traffic. But I think you're going to start to see content creation become more important like it used to be. You'll probably see also an elevation of like PR and earned media coverage, earned media teams become more important. And then I think the most important question is, did your husband return the boots?
No, he loved them.
There you go.
Yes, 100%. And he loved them. And that's the thing is like, you're able to get so much specific context because they're looking at reviews. They're looking at the description, they're indexing more information than I think I can even comprehend of like, the gram weight of like how hot they are and different uses he was going to use it for and, where we live, like every little bit of context that you give it, it's adapting so much. And I think it's just going to be so interesting to see. And I'm excited for it. People have mixed opinions on AI, but it's here and it's not going anywhere. And so I'm excited for it. I'm excited to see where it kind of goes. So it kind of seems like step one, figuring out where you're at. Step two is figuring out what's indexing and how can we get there and start adding some of those strategies there. Is there anything else? Seems like you have things that you like, things that you dislike. Is there anything else that you feel like people need to know as kind of like a beginner masterclass of this going into AI, AEO, GEO? Is there anything else that you feel like to kind of end the day in this conversation that they really need to know as they're getting into this?
One thing that a lot of people don't talk about is this thing called schema, which is really important. And it's like in the background and it basically tells the LLMs that you're credible. It's like this whole like technical markup stuff. It's not sexy, but it's kind of important. So if you run your own website, if you're a small, medium-sized business and you have your own website and you have like a plugin, one of these web plugins like Yoast or Rank Math or something like that, take a look at schema in there because the companies that tend to put this schema stuff on their website, they get found faster. Go ask ChatGPT about schema after you listen to this podcast because that's kind of a thing you can do right away to make a big difference. Yeah. Honestly, like the content and stuff like that is so crucial. And then on the back end, you want to take it up a notch, schema.
Schema. Interesting. Okay. We'll have to go and look at that and see what that kind of entails. I mean, just like SEO is such a deep world. Like SEO, there's specialists and you can go at a baseline. You can have, some light keywords and, some of the Yoast stuff that's just optimizing the alt text and metadata, whatever. And then you can also go really deep into SEO and have a full built out SEO strategy. And I think it's going to be similar here. You made a comment earlier about bigger brands and smaller brands. This is a myth that I'm seeing a lot is that people are like, oh, well, it's just going to be all of the bigger brands are going to surpass all of the small brands really early on because they already have authority. How do you really feel on that? Is there really an opportunity here for startups, growing medium-sized brands to kind of outweigh some of these larger corporate companies?
I absolutely 100% think there is. Like I said, it's a great democratizer. In this kind of market, it's the same thing with SEO. Like your best friend can be an agency, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of the agencies, there's a lot of really bad agencies out there. So you want to go with the ones who really get it. And there's a lot of small agencies. So you don't have to have some huge price tag, but you want to get somebody to help you with this that is like, they're passionate about it and they get it. Like the stuff like schema. Like I remember hearing schema 2 years ago. Yeah. Like, what the heck is that? Now I'm like, oh, schema, right?
Yeah.
So I think that if you can afford a little bit of outreach with an agency, look for somebody who really understands GEO. If they start saying things like SEO is the same as GEO, don't worry about it. Keep going. Knock on the next door because that's not a good thing. But I think that if executed correctly, forget about it. It is a great democratizer. I like to say it's, everything that your mother told you about when you went to kindergarten for the first day. Produce authentic, credible content. Don't be a trickster. Be mission driven, produce products that you know are good, and speak to your customers like you want to be spoken to, and structure your content right. Forget about it.
Totally.
You win.
Yeah. It's with anything, when Instagram Reels came out, the people that really took advantage of it early on were the ones that blew up right away. And now they have these wonderful platforms. Or TikTok. When TikTok first came out, there's fewer people optimizing for it, or there's fewer people creating. So it's similar right now where, because we are having this conversation so early on, is the people that are optimizing now are going to reap the benefits now. And then you just have to adapt as it changes, as opposed to having to instill this whole new strategy once you're already in the back half of the people that are putting in some of this strategy. So I think it's really important. Leah, where can people find Brandi AI? What do they need to know about it? And where can people kind of find you so they can use your tools to get in on this as well?
Cool. Yeah, no, you can find us at My Brandi, that's with an I, Brandi, mybrandi.ai. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Leah Nurik, and you can connect with me there. And yeah, we have a lot of information about GEO and AEO on our website. A ton, like guides on what you can do in our blog section. So go there and check it out. You could probably learn more than you'd ever want to know about AEO or GEO. We also have certified agency programs. So if you need a recommendation for an agency that, if you care about GEO, a lot of them also do digital and SEO. Some of them are for smaller businesses. Some of them are huge global agencies. Shoot us an email and we could probably recommend somebody to you, because somebody who's an expert can be your best friend in this new era. If you're curious on your own, you can learn enough to do it by yourself. But sometimes as business owners, you don't have enough time to go deep on every single thing. So sometimes trust in the experts can be a lot easier.
Absolutely. And then you don't have to learn it. You can kind of just be like, here, go help, which is really helpful.
Yeah.
Leah, thank you so much for being here. I know I could ask you a million more questions, but we'll start here, and maybe we'll have to do a part 2 in the coming months when things change and adapt and we can get more info coming.
Well, yeah. And then we can talk about sandals, because it'll be summer.
There we go.
As opposed to snowmobile.
Sandals and sunscreen the next time.
Yes. And new ads that come out. I'm an ad fanatic, so I love them.
I'm so excited to see the ads and see how it impacts everything. I just think we are in such an age of so much change. Every 6 months, so much is changing, with all of the new integrations and all of the different softwares, and especially it'll be so interesting to see in 6 months, 12 months, 24 months where this is all at.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Madison, and thanks for everybody for listening.
Yes. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Business Growth Podcast. We put out new episodes every Tuesday and Friday. So if you love this one, make sure that you're subscribed so you never miss a conversation. If you want more conversations with me and other business owners, make sure that you join our completely free podcast community, the Founders Cafe. The link is in the show notes. You can get bonus resources, access to free coaching calls, as well as connect with like-minded business owners like yourself. Make sure that you rate and review the podcast 5 stars, share it with a friend to keep those conversations moving, and come back every Tuesday and Friday. I'll see you there.